Hey everyone, today's video I'm going to be talking about this data set I have here, which is a list of every team that has ever won the European Champions League or been a finalist, a runner-up in the Champions League. And the question I was thinking about when I looked for this data was the question that floats around sometimes, which is, which league of the top European leagues is the best? Um, of course, it's an impossible question because what does it mean to be the best league? There's so many different criteria, different opinions, um, and it fluctuates over time. For a few years, one league will be really strong, and then another league will kind of take over. So we can't really definitively say which league is the best, but I did think it was an interesting point in this conversation to look at the data and see, which leagues have produced the highest number of different teams that have been Champions League finalists. So either won or been the runner-up. And just by kind of looking at the different leagues from each country and seeing how many unique teams have won it, I thought was an interesting point in judging how strong that league has been over the years. So let's go down the list. I sorted this list alphabetically by country, so we'll just go one country at a time and look at how many teams from that country have won the Champions League or been runners-up. So first on the list, alphabetically, is Belgium. So Belgium has had one team that was a Champions League finalist, Club Brugge. They were runners-up in 1978. So that's the only data point for Belgium is Club Brugge. Let's move on to the next one, which is England. So if we look at England, I'm going to highlight all these cells, and then if we look down here, we'll see the number 8. And that means that there's 8 entries in my selection right there. So there was 8 teams that have either won or been runners-up in the Champions League. Liverpool, Man United, Nottingham, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Arsenal, Leeds, and Tottenham. So already we can see a big difference between England and Belgium in terms of the number of teams from those leagues that have been finalists in the Champions League. And I think anybody that follows European football would kind of intuitively say that the Premier League is the stronger of the two leagues. Well, let's keep going down the list because the real question we want to answer is not really England and Belgium, but England versus Spain and Germany and Italy. So next we go to France. So France, if we again look down at our little counter here, we see there's 5 teams that have been finalists in the Champions League for France. So Marseille, Monaco, and various others. So now we can start to compare England versus France. Again, not saying that necessarily England is the better league, but England has produced 8 Champions League finalists. France has produced 5 over the years. Now, one point I do want to make that we'll get into is it's one thing to look at how many teams have been a finalist at least once, but we should also at some point come look at how many times those teams have won. So, we're kind of counting Liverpool and Aston Villa as the same. Liverpool has won 6 times and been runner-up 3 times. Aston Villa has won once. So a little later in the video, I'll talk about that more. But for now, we're just going to say how many teams have been finalists at least once. So let's keep going. Germany. So Germany, if we select all their cells, we've got 6 down here. So Germany has produced 6 teams that have been Champions League finalists. Pretty obviously, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, and various others. If we keep going down the list, we've got Greece has been a finalist once. Now we get to Italy, a typical contender for sort of one of the top leagues of Europe. Italy, if we look over here, we've got 6. So another strong contender, and that actually ties Germany as far as number of teams that have at least once been Champions League finalists. Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus, and various others. Let's keep going on the list. Netherlands, 3 times they've produced a team that was a Champions League finalist. Portugal twice, Romania once, Scotland once, Serbia twice. So here's another heavy hitter, Spain. So Spain's interesting because of all the top European clubs, they're on the lower end of the number of teams that have been Champions League finalists. They only have 4 that have ever made it to a Champions League final. Now, of course, we'll look at it in a second. You can't ignore that Real Madrid has won 13 times. So that does say a lot about Spain's league and, of course, the players that play in Spain. That have played in Spain, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, and a lot of other world-class players. But I think it's interesting just for this discussion that in terms of unique teams, the number of teams that have at least once made it to the final, there's only been 4 from Spain. Last, Sweden have had 1 team that have made it to the final. Okay, so we made it through the full list. And just to sum that up, England has produced the most teams that have made it to a final, 8. Then we go into Germany and Italy that are both tied at 6. And then we go to France that has had 5 teams. And last, Spain has had 4 teams from Spain that have made it to a Champions League final. Okay, I know what a lot of people are thinking, and it's what I just talked about. Is this really fair to say Spain is the least productive of the top 5 leagues? Probably not, but because just the sheer amount of how many times a team from Spain has won. And right now we're going to go through and look at how many times any team from those leagues have won. This time around, I'll just limit it to the top 5 leagues just for time. And we'll start with England. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select all the cells that belong to England. And this is anytime they were a winner or a runner-up. And what we can do with Excel is look over here and see the sum, which is 22. So that's summing all these numbers in this selection and saying that 22 times a team from England won or was runner-up in the Champions League. So it's a little different than what we were saying and what we were looking at before. Before we were looking at just number of teams that have made it at least once. But now we're counting, okay, Liverpool has won 6 times and been runner-up 3 times. So that's going to up their England's number a lot. And if you add up all of these, Man United winning 3 times and being runner-up twice and everyone else, 22 times England has made it to a final, or the Premier League has had a team in the final. Now let's look at France. So France, 7 times. Marseille has won once, and then various other teams from France have been runners-up. Okay, so 22 for England, 7 for France. Let's look at Germany. Germany, 18. So even though they've only had 6 teams that have ever made it to a final, altogether they've won or been runners-up 18 times, and a big part of that is thanks to Bayern Munich, who's won 6 times and been runners-up 5 times, which is a lot. So let's go down to Italy. Italy, 28. So even though they've only, again, produced 6 teams that have ever made it to the final, between those 6 teams, they've been winners or runners-up 28 times. So Milan has won 7, runner-up 4. Juventus won twice, runner-up 7 times. Inter Milan won 3, runners-up twice, and various other teams that have been runners-up. So far, Italy, with their 28, have had the most Champions League finals from that league. But let's go down to Spain is the last one. Okay, so Spain, 29. They just barely edge out Italy. And of course, like we've said a couple times, Real Madrid, 13-time winners. Barcelona, 5 times, runner-up 3 times. And then besides that, Atletico and Valencia have both had a couple of runner-up appearances. So if you look at it that way, Spain has produced the most finalists. So really, the way I'm looking at this data is it's kind of two ways you can look at which league is performing the best. You can say, is there a league that has one team that's just always dominating, kind of like Liga with PSG? They're constantly winning the domestic league. They haven't necessarily done well in the Champions League, but they're kind of like a league where one team really dominates. And you could kind of say the same about Italy and Germany. But, Spain and England are a little bit different, where it varies more who's going to win the domestic league. And so I think Spain and England both have interesting factors from this data set, which is Spain had the most finals. 29 times was a team from Spain in a Champions League final. But England actually has the most different teams that have ever made it to a final, 8, compared to Spain's 4. So while Spain has some of the, again, amazing players that have made Barcelona and Real Madrid some of the very best over the years, it looks like England tends to produce a wider number of different teams that have that potential to go far in the Champions League and in Europe. Anyway, that's the video today. Comment below if you have any questions about this data set or any thoughts on how I approached it, or if there's anything else, any other data questions you think it would be interesting to answer. And thanks for watching.